This is a summary of part 5 of David Hume's dialogues concerning natural religion. And it begins with Philo examining Cleanthes' principle, the principle that underlies his main argument. And that principle is like effects prove like causes. And so you'll recall that Cleanthes' argument is an analogy between, on the one hand, natural objects and on the other, human artifacts. And the comparison is to say that these things are very much alike, and so that just as we know that human artifacts are designed or created, so natural objects must also be designed or created. Philo's concerned with this because what we're learning through science and in astronomy in particular is how vast and how grand the universe is and how complex it is. And so this makes the effect or natural objects of the universe very dissimilar to human artifacts. The more discoveries we make, the less strong or the more dissimilar these two effects are, and so this weakens the analogy and weakens the conclusion. He says this is going on in astronomy, but also anatomy, chemistry, and botany. Cleanthes thinks that this is not a problem. In fact, all of these discoveries just is more evidence for the design conclusion. But Philo presses on. He says, Cleanthes' argument denies the infinity of the creator, because if you remember, the principle is like effects prove like causes. So you've got, on the one hand, a human artifact, which is human created, designed by a finite, non-eternal being. And on the other hand, you have nature or a natural object, which is not eternal either. And so the conclusion is that Philo wants to draw is that the designer must not be eternal either. He thinks this is a problem for Cleanthes. Secondly, there are all kinds of flaws in the universe and in nature, and so that must mean that the creator himself is not perfect either. And so that's a problem for Cleanthes. But even if we say there are no flaws in the universe and nature is perfect just as it is, he says it doesn't follow that the designer is perfect. And he uses the example of the shipbuilder. He says you might find this beautiful ship and be surprised to discover that it was created by a, quote, stupid mechanic who just copied other people and put together the pieces after a long period of time, after years and years and years, finally arrived at this final production. But you wouldn't say that the mechanic was a perfect one, right? For the same reason, it doesn't follow that the designer of this universe was a perfect one, even though the product might be perfect. And moreover, you can't say that the designer is just one. It's possible that this universe was designed by a committee. It was built by committee, right? And so there was maybe a group of them that got together to make it. And maybe it wasn't built at all, he says. Maybe it was created in the same way that we humans create one another. We procreate. Maybe it was sexual activity that brought the universe into being. And then maybe it wasn't a mind. Remember, Cleanthes wants to show this is a divine mind, an act of a spirit. He says that it wasn't that. Maybe this being, this creator, has a body. He thinks that these are all problems for Cleanthes' conclusion. He says, quote, this world, for all you know, Cleanthes, is very faulty and imperfect compared to a superior standard, and was only the first rude essay of some infant deity who afterwards abandoned it, ashamed of his lame performance. It is the work of only some dependent inferior deity, and is the object of derision to his superiors. It is the production of old age and dotage in some superannuated deity. This is quite a conclusion, and you would think that Cleanthes might be defeated or feel defeated at this point. But he wraps up this chapter with the following words, basically saying, I'll take it, Philo. You have shown me that you cannot escape the design conclusion. You've presented all of these doubts about the designer, but you have not been able to deny the fact of design itself. And so since design is the foundation of religion, I will just accept that you have been defeated and cannot disprove the designer. So anyways, hope that's helpful.